All right, guys. So we have it's an awesome honor to have Simon Sinek with us today. Let's see, I don't even know where to start really. A couple years ago, he wrote a book called "Start with Why," and since then, it seems like it's totally swept across the world, both in your speaking arrangements, seems like everywhere, all the time, and just the way that this book has inspired companies, or this concept has inspired companies and people to really, what I see is find what they're passionate about and do it. And that's obviously what Live Your Legend is all about. And so it's so fun to have you here with your work. I mean, when I first read Start With Why, that has now become, when I rebranded Live Your Legend, this website and this business, and then created Live Off Your Passion, it was all based on your concept of starting with why. And now I'm doing it again with our investment business. So it turns your thinking on its head in such a powerful way. And it's no overestimation for me to say that this is the most useful piece of information I've learned this year, and which is amazing. So, and I mean, your speaking schedule too. I mean, blows my mind. What is it, sometimes like 20 events in a month?
Yeah, something like that.
It's wild. And I mean, we're talking places like Microsoft, Dell, SAP, United States military, a lot of neat things. So I think what's most exciting for me about having you on right now is that I don't think you can do passionate work without starting with why, without going through the things that you talk about. So I'm excited to dive in. I know a lot of people have sent in questions, so we'll get through to them. But thanks, Simon. It's an honor to have you here.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
When you do something that you believe in, when you work hard on something you believe in, it's called passion. But when you work hard on something you don't believe in, it's called stress.
I love it. That's a good quote.
People, I'm really passionate. Well, you have to, whatever, yeah, we're all passionate, but we're not all passionate for the same thing. So.
Right. Well put. So that kind of brings us into our first question. Just for the people who maybe aren't familiar with your material, Can you just kind of quickly let us know, what is this concept, this brilliance that you've stumbled upon and that you've been helping people with?
A few years ago, I made this discovery that every single organization on the planet, even our own careers, functions on the same three levels. What we do, how we do it, and why we do it. Mm-hmm. That combination of things I call the golden circle. And every single one of us knows what we do. These are the products we sell, the services we offer. Some know how we do it, whether we call it our differentiating value proposition or proprietary process, whatever it is, the things that we think make us different or special or stand out. Right. But very, very few of us can clearly articulate why we do what we do. And by why, I don't mean to make money, that's a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose, what's your cause, what's your belief. Why does your company exist? I mean, we don't really need another one. There's plenty of choice out there.
Right.
It's those few leaders and those few organizations that can clearly articulate why they do what they do on a level that lives and exists higher and above simply their products and their services that stand out. And this is what explains the remarkable influence and the ability to inspire everything from Apple to Martin Luther King. Every single one of them starts with why.
So you kind of looked through all those people in these different situations and noticed a common thread, and it was this idea of starting with why.
It's a pattern, and the most remarkable thing about it is it's a pattern that's grounded in biology. So it is a human constant. It is not influenced by culture or product or industry.
Right, and it's so damn simple when you get down to it, which is what I love.
Simple. I just had the conversation this week about our neocortex, our Homo sapien brain, is very good at creating complexity even when there is.
Right, we love making things difficult.
Yes, we do.
So why is it so important to you, this concept? I mean, you are putting so much blood, sweat, tears into what you're doing. I mean, you could just be selling a book, but you are on the road nonstop, inspiring people to do this stuff. What's the deal?
Well, for me, it's a very personal journey. I mean, this thing called the why, this tool called the golden circle, is just that. It's just a tool. I mean, I imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every day to go do the things that they do, inspired to go do the things that they do, and come home at the end of the day fulfilled by the work that they did.
Right.
We live in a world we live in a world in which over 90% of people go home at the end of the day unfulfilled by the work that they do. Wow. And I find that horrible. And it's not just the selfishness of wanting to be happy every day, but people who are happy have better marriages. Their kids grow up more confident. Their kids do better at school. They go to work happier. Their heart disease goes down. Diabetes goes down. Cancer goes down. These are all heavily influenced by stress.
Right.
There's a wonderful study I read recently that working parents who come home late, even though they may feel guilty, the negative impact it has on the raising of their children is actually very minimal. Where parents who come home unhappy because of a job they don't like, their kids are more likely to be bullies at school.
Really?
And we know that we have this bullying epidemic in America right now, and
Right.
kids are committing suicide because of bullies at school. And perhaps the solution has nothing to do with the kids, but to do with the parents going home happy, which means that corporations and companies actually have a responsibility for fixing the bullying problem in America.
Right. It's like that's where the trickle starts up the stream is
Exactly right.
how you spend your whole day.
It's exactly right. So that the reason I'm on the road a lot, and the reason, and for me, I'm totally agnostic as to the media that I use, whether I speak, whether I write in short form, whether I write in long form, or any other medium that someone can bring to me. For me, it's about getting a message out and doing my part by giving a tool to advance that cause. But we're all in it together. None of us can do it alone.
Right. Well, I've given your book, I don't know to how many people at this point, and share the concept nonstop. So
thank you. Well, it's nice to march shoulder to shoulder with you.
Oh, definitely. So, okay, so why is it so important, like personally? Like, why should I care about starting with why? I mean, do you see it as something that's a necessity, or that, how does it fall in?
Nobody has to do it. I mean, there's
Right.
no law around it. I mean,
right.
those who do it tend to go home more fulfilled. Those who do it tend to be more inspired when they wake up in the morning. Those who do it have a capacity to inspire those around them. Those who do it have the ability to inspire people to want to come to their aid when they least expect it, and sometimes when they most need it. So, you don't have to do it, but if those things are appealing, it's definitely helpful.
That's compelling enough for me. So why does it seem so difficult for people or companies to start with why? Or I guess why are so few seem to be doing it at this point? With your work, more and more are, but what's the challenge there?
Two challenges primarily. One is it's hard to measure. How do you measure culture in your company? How do you measure passion? How do you measure happiness? How do you measure motivation? How do you measure joy? It's easier to measure numbers, and so we default to that. So that's one problem. It exists in the part of the brain that controls behavior and feelings, but it doesn't control rational and analytical thought and language. It's hard to talk about, and it's hard to measure. And so very often it's dismissed as fluff at worst, or at best, I get it, I just don't know how to implement it.
Right.
And so that's one obstacle. The other obstacle is it requires courage. Those who start with why have an ability to turn away money that's wafted under their nose, even though they know it's a bad fit for their organization. And those who start with why have the gumption to take short-term financial hits for the long-term greater good, but they're clear on that greater good. I mean, one of my favorite stories, back in the early '80s, Steve Jobs and some of his senior executives in this young company called Apple went to visit Xerox PARC, and Xerox showed them this new technology they had developed called the graphic user interface. And now Jobs had just come off the success of the Apple I, they just come off the success of the Apple II, and they had invested heavily in the Lisa, which was to be their next big push. Now keep in mind, Jobs has a vision of the world in which technology integrates seamlessly into our human lives and makes it easier to do the things that we do. And he sees this graphic user interface thing, a technology that Xerox was suppressing for fear that it would cannibalize their own industry, which is hilarious. And Jobs takes his executives aside and says, we need to do this. Again, he didn't come up with the technology, but he saw it as a more efficient step to help him get to where he wanted to go. Now, they'd already invested millions in the Lisa. And so one of his executives leaps in and says, Steve, if we invest in this, we're going to blow up our own business. To which Jobs replies, if we don't blow it up, someone else will. And that's the courage it takes to start with why. That sometimes it means completely throwing something out because you find something better at helping you advance your cause.
Right. God, I feel like Apple.
By the way, that bet on the graphic user interface became the first Macintosh computer.
Man, that takes not only real gumption and courage, but just a vision, a serious reason for being.
Yeah. Well, I mean, great leaders, that's what they do. Great leaders articulate a world far off in the future that does not yet exist. I mean, that's what they do. Right. Which goes to the other reason why it's hard to do, because we measure the value of a CFO or COO by looking backwards at the numbers. We measure the value of a great CEO by how far in the future they can see. How do you do that?
Exactly. Wow, so it seems like we're almost conditioned this way by society, by the public stock market. I mean, all these things you got to think short term about the numbers. But I know at least you hear Steve Jobs quotes things saying like, listen, it's not about what our earnings are next quarter. We're building something to change the world. And if it doesn't work the next few months, that's fine. It doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
that takes courage for a CEO, especially a big CEO.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Great CEOs are driven by their vision and mission first, and the profits will prove it later. Weak CEOs are driven by profit first, and hopefully that factors in some greater vision or mission.
Right. It's easier to say that when you're
result. Profit is a result.
Right.
There's a result,
Exactly.
and results come at the end.
Exactly. It's the power of the why is so amazing. Like I think you were familiar with Samovar Tea Lounge in San Francisco,
Oh, yeah.
and Jesse's a good friend, and I was sitting there having lunch last week, and I paid 4 times what I would have paid for my regular lunch at Chipotle, but I was so happy to do it because the experience and everything is just amazing because you just believe what he believes about slowness and presence. So
yeah, and I didn't know I still don't know Jesse, but I've been a fan of Samovar and not even realizing that he was so we're mutual lovers of each other's work.
Well, I was at his house for dinner and he had your book with about 30 different sticky notes in it. So he's big on your work. So anyway, okay. So what about how do we starting with why? Like let's say from the individual level, since a lot of our readers either have single person businesses or just for themselves, where do you begin to start that discovery process?
The discovery process goes from your past. I mean, we are all products of our own upbringing. We're all products of our own, the lessons we learned from our teachers and our parents and the experiences we had as kids, And so our whys are fully formed probably by the time we're in our, late teens. And it never changes. Once your why is formed, your why is formed. You can't change who you are. You are who you are. Your career simply offers you an opportunity to either live in balance or out of balance. In other words, that how you do and what you do is consistent with what you believe or inconsistent with what you believe. It's called authenticity.
Right.
And that's it. And so the way you find it is to go backwards. You can look into your own past, and even if you just look at your work, what are the examples of projects or things that you worked on where you actually loved being a part of it every single day, specifically, not, I loved, when we did projects like this. I'm talking specific projects, specific times that, even though it may not have been commercially successful, you loved being a part of it, and if every job and every day could be like this, you'd be the happiest person alive. Go write those patterns down.
Okay.
And this is what we do in our Why University, which is we take people through the steps throughout their whole lives to find those patterns.
Right. So it sounds like, and this is some of the work that I've suggested for the Live Off Your Passion course, where, do you see the why and passion as, are they almost synonymous? Are they joined at the hip? Are they totally different? What's the
passion? Passion is a result. Passion is like profit, which is if you make certain steps that you end, the day with more than you began with, we call that profit, right?
Yep.
Usually measured in money. Well, passion is also a result, which is if you invest in things that you believe in, and the outcome helps advance that cause, that hard work that you put in is called passion. So you don't start something with passion. I'm passionate, but not if you put me in an accounting job.
Right.
I got no passion.
Right.
And even if you tell me it's an accounting job to do good in the world, I still got no passion.
Yeah.
So for people to say, I'm a passionate person, we only hire passionate people, is complete nonsense. Passion is a result. Passion comes as it's a feeling you get as a result of being a part of something that you believe in. So the why is that thing that drives you and inspires you and sets that true north and is that lighthouse. And when you point yourself in that direction, the work that you invest is called passion. So when people say, Simon, you're so passionate, it's only because I've set myself in a direction of something I believe in.
Right.
I wasn't, the reason this thing came about is because I had pointed myself in a direction that I wasn't passionate. I had lost my passion and I didn't know why. Literally, I had lost my passion and yet I was doing the same work I was always doing. And so saying I'm passionate or it's just do what you're passionate about is not actionable or helpful. We know that.
Right. Right. So starting with why allows you to then
feel passion.
Feel passion and
Correct.
And live it. I like that.
Correct.
Okay. So how about, actually, that brings up a question from one of our readers, Victor Matthews. He said, Can a person or organization's why change or evolve as time based on circumstances?
No.
No.
Just as a human being cannot change
Yep.
or evolve, our lives simply provide opportunities for us to live our why or not. And tragedy doesn't create a why. Tragedy is usually a clean space in which our whys have an opportunity to flourish.
Okay.
After September 11th, a lot of people woke up in the morning and said, my job is stupid. You know?
Right.
And what that did was it gave you a big slap of reality, and you realized you'd rather be doing something that you're actually passionate about. But no, a strong company is born out of the founder's why. In other words, the why of the organization and the why of the person are the same. That organization, that company, is one of the things that the founder is doing to help bring their cause to life. They founded a company. That company is ostensibly a megaphone to help bring that message out at scale. So the why of Apple and the why of Steve Jobs, exactly the same. You know, Bill Gates's why is to help people be more productive so they can achieve their greatest potential. That's the why of Microsoft. It's also the why of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Right. If you go listen to Gates's TED Talk and you change the word mosquito nets to personal computer, it's the same talk he gave in the 1970s. Right. You know, Richard Branson has over 300 companies, all of which have the same why. His why. The person and the company are the same. It's one of the things that somebody does to bring their own cause to life. I
see. So you find a why that's you, and then, or your why, and then the what's and all the, you can make the iPod, the Apple TV,
and it's just that those who choose to start companies, right? When you know your why, I would hope that your job is one of the things that you do to help advance your cause. Right. Every employee should feel that their job is something that they've done in their life to help amplify and bring their cause to life. Well, if you happen to be the founder or entrepreneur or business owner, then it's the company that helps advance your. It's just a scale. It's just a scale difference, but the root is the same.
Right. And what's amazing is that with the tools, even like let's say with the blog I have at Live Your Legend or that kind of business or YouTube, you can broadcast your why without hardly any money invested or any real support. It's incredible.
I'm living proof of it. I don't have a publicist. You know?
I love it.
I made the mistake of having one right at the beginning of when I came out with the book because everybody told me I had to, and it's a big waste of money.
Right.
And when we ended that relationship, we focused on what we knew to be true, which is let's just preach what we believe, and those who believe what we believe will preach what we believe as well, not because they're doing it for us as a favor, not because they have an incentive, not because we hired them to do it, but because we provide a language and a tool to help them communicate what they believe. Right. The only reason you're talking about why is it's because it's a tool and that helps you communicate what it means to live your passion, to live your legend, right? And everyone who's ever called me, whether they're in business or in government or in military or in politics, anyone who's ever called me, I provide words that help them advance what they believe. I'm just a tool. Right. My sister would agree. Right. So yeah, it's
you make us want to spread the message because it's so powerful for each of us individually. It's like you say, people didn't show up for Martin Luther King; they showed up for themselves.
They showed up for themselves. You know, we help each other. I mean, we help each other, and so we surround ourselves and are drawn to people who do something, whether it's in words or in actions, that feel right to us, that help us advance our own cause. You know, I'm drawn to the people myself. I do the same thing for others. I'm constantly making introductions, not because it serves me, but because I believe if I want to inspire people to do what inspires them, this person and this person have to meet because something's going to happen.
Right.
The reason I'm showing up here today, you know, I'm not going to receive a big check from you.
Right.
You know, there's no advantage to me financially or something like that, which is usually how we calculate whether we should or shouldn't do something. You know, there's no promises that have been made, but I know what you believe. And I know that if I can give you and your readers tools to help go advance your cause, you're advancing my cause. So of course I show up.
Right. Well, thank you. So it brings me to one of the last questions that I might be walking into a trap here, but how do you get others to believe in your why?
You don't.
Okay.
You don't. This is not about convincing people. Convincing takes a rational argument. And though someone may be convinced, their loyalty and belief and faith in you are not conditional on that rational case you make. Right. In fact, most of the things that we do that we believe in are completely irrational. You know, anybody who starts a business is an idiot. You know, you have an over 90% chance of failure. You know, you're going to cut your salary and work harder. You know,
Right.
it's like there's no rational benefit to that, but we're driven by passion. It's our calling. All these words that live up in the ether that we don't know what they mean,
Right.
and yet we inspire our crazy friends to quit their perfectly good jobs and come join us. And what we're trying to do is build something, far from the future. Now, weak companies are those where both the founder and the early employees want to get rich, where the founder says, I'm going to do this because I'm going to get rich, and I'm going to offer my friends jobs by offering them huge bounties. Now, that was called the dot-com boom. It didn't work very well because no one cares anything about anything other than themselves. Great organizations built on common cause, we put each other first. I just realized I'm wearing a Marine Corps T-shirt. Here's an amazing organization that believes in putting the lives of others first, and as a result, they are one of the preeminent, if not the preeminent, fighting organization in the world. And it's not because they just hire big burly guys. It's because they hire people who believe fundamentally in putting the guy next to them first.
And I actually recently watched your EO Alchemy event talk with a few other people in my office, and your concept, your one phrase of officers eat last, I feel like totally embodies this whole thing that I know is very powerful for you.
Yeah, well, I can't take credit for the phrase.
Right, but...
And the story was told to me by a lieutenant general in the Marine Corps, who we were discussing what makes the Marine Corps such a remarkable organization. And he said to me, the cost of leadership is self-interest. And then he told the story of how the Marines fundamentally believe that officers eat last, which means food, the thing that gives you sustenance. The food that is the cornerstone of life. When you have nothing left, you still feed the guy next to you. I'll tell you a story about Navy SEALs.
Okay.
Bud's training is the Navy SEAL selection, where they all go through this basic underwater demolition, and 10% make it. That have the quality to make SEALs, and they were interviewing a SEAL, and the question was asked, "Who makes it? Who makes it through Buds?" And he sort of paused and said, "I can't tell you who makes it. I don't know, but I can tell you who doesn't make it." He says, "The big burly guys, who think that the size of their muscles are an indicator of the size of their strength," he says, "None of them make it." He says, "The guys covered with tattoos who have them there simply to show everybody how tough they are, none of them make it." He said, the college star athletes, these preening leaders who like to delegate everything but not get into the mud, he says, none of them make it.
Yeah.
He says, some of the guys who make it, they look scrawny, he said. He said, some of the guys who make it, he says, you will see them shivering at some points out of fear. He says, I don't know who makes it, but I can tell you the guys who make it, every single one to a T, 100% of them, that when all the chips are down, when they have no strength left, when their minds and bodies are absolutely exhausted, every single one of them has the amazing capacity to go deep within and find the strength to help the guy next to them. That's who makes it.
Wow.
So now if we consider our most elite forces on the planet, the people who put others first, then why would we consider the elite in anything any different? In the military, they give medals for those who sacrifice themselves for others. In business, we give bonuses to people who sacrifice others for themselves. We've got it backwards.
That's an amazing point. That's powerful. So on that note, there's one thing that came in from somebody who's a commanding officer in the Navy who wrote in a question, so I thought it was appropriate given your work. He said, when inheriting a team that does not necessarily share your why, how do you help them to embrace the why you are building?
Tell him to look up the work of his former colleague, Captain David Marquet.
Okay.
David Marquet is a retired naval captain. He commanded the USS Santa Fe, nuclear-powered submarine. Mm-hmm. And this was his first command in the U.S. Navy. He was very proud. He gets his first command, and they give him the worst-rated crew in the entire United States submarine fleet. Within 1 year, with the same equipment and the same people, he had turned around that submarine to be the highest-rated submarine crew in the entire United States submarine fleet. Wow. More importantly, the people who worked on his crew, they would requests to come back again and again and again, which was unheard of. And many of them have gone up to have their own commands and joint commands on a much, much, much higher proportion than other boats. In other words, he wasn't just turning them around, he was building leaders.
Right. Oh, that's incredible.
And that's how you have to think of it, which is don't look at how you can get these people to do what you want. The question is, how do you take these people and help them, help their natural abilities shine? How do you take these people and turn them into leaders? You know, to demonstrate the qualities of leadership and serve them,
right?
To give them what they need. You know, you as an officer, as a commanding officer, your responsibility is to, like a CEO, is to make sure that those who follow you, whether they choose to or whether they're told to, that they have everything they need to work at their best. And that's how it's done, and that's how loyalties are created.
Right, and that goes for anyone in any organization.
For anyone, right. You can't lead an organization, you can't lead a company, you can only lead people. And all of these things that we're talking about have no difference whether they're in the military or whether they're in the private sector, right. Because it's about people performing to their highest capacity to advance some higher noble cause,
wow.
Which we call the why.
Yeah.
The military, just the stakes are higher.
Right. Wow, this is awesome, Simon. This stuff is super powerful. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I want to make sure that people know how they can further their education, further, help you with spreading your why and all this. And I know there's Why University, which I've gone through. Can you tell us a little bit about the tools that we can use to kind of keep this going?
Sure. We put as much stuff as we can out there, and we encourage people to take our stuff and do what you want with it. We purposely, none of it is copyrighted, none of it is rights protected. It is all out there to be used by whoever and to adapt and build upon. So feel free to use all the tools. We have the Why University at startwithwhy.com for anyone who wants to personally learn their why. We have Notes to Inspire, which you can subscribe to also at startwithwhy.com at the top of the screen there, which is for, it just sends you a daily email to remind you about why you do what you do.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm on Twitter and Facebook and all the other good places.
Excellent. We'll definitely link up to all that stuff. I actually just went through the program, the Y University, last Friday with my business partner, and we had a bigger breakthrough than we've ever had in the last 3 years since starting our company. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad it's working. I'll pass it on to the team that built it that it's working.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Simon. This is incredible. Please keep doing what you're doing.
Likewise. Thanks for being a part of it, Scott.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.